y'all, because it's going to change tomorrow. So you see how when you go to home and then you go to decks, they have like decks here at the top that you've created, and then they've got the ability to create decks or buy decks at the bottom here. So they're going to be moving these two to the top now, so that as soon as you click decks, you will see create deck or buy deck. I think it's small, but I think it's a good thing. It's going to help with the flow of like when you go to this tab, like what you're looking for. And then added the ability to skip through tutorial messages. Again, something that I don't have to deal with, but I think it's going to be useful for onboarding people. And then it says the escape key on desktop now opens the in-game settings. Another quality of life thing. I do play on computer a good bit, so that's gonna be cool. And then it says new quests and updated quests. So I don't know what these quests are, but I will say that I've completed quite a few quests in the game, and I like the quests. They're interesting. Some of them are like really easy, but some of them are pretty tough. And they encourage you to play the game in new ways. They encourage you to like build certain decks and things like that. So I like the quest so far. And then there's some changes here. It says players no longer receive match complete or victory bonus XP until they have unlocked the first 3 heroes. I don't think this is necessary, to be honest. I don't think this change is necessary. And it says they changed the amount of XP required to reach Wanderer rank from 1500 to 200. Which I think that's a good thing. What that means is that all it takes is one win, basically, to get to Wanderer rank. One win after you unlock the first 3 heroes, if I'm reading this correctly. Which is a lot easier than, like, to get to Wanderer, you had to play, like, fucking, like, 6 or 7 matches. So I think that's good. Change the amount of rank points people start with from 200 to 0. I think that's irrelevant. They're adding tiers to Wanderer. So now instead of it just being Wanderer into Apprentice, it's going to go Wanderer. And instead of going Wanderer into Apprentice 1, it's going to go Wanderer 1, 2, 3, and then Apprentice 1. I personally don't... I mean, that's not a big deal for me. I haven't been Wanderer in a long time. Actually, I may have never been. I don't know. It's been a while. I'm not worried about that. It says rank points will now only decrease once a player reaches the apprentice rank. That's a good thing. That's how it was when I first started playing. That first rank they gave you, you were not able to lose points until you got to the second rank. So, but then they changed it when they like dropped officially released the game. So I think that them going back to the original way they had it, that's a good thing. And then added more XP rewards and shifted reset values. I'm not sure what that means. Let's go ahead and look at the rank system real quick. So right here, this is what you're ranking up in when you play ranked. So you're gonna start out Wanderer 1, and then as you go up the tiers, when the season resets, you will reset to a certain rank depending on where you ended the last season. So for example, if you end your last season at let's just say Expert 3, then when the season resets, you will go to Apprentice 3. So, but if you end the season at Master, when the season resets, you will go to Expert 1. And so you got a chart here listing like all the different ranks and shit, like which rank you end the season at and when and what you reset to and things like that. Super useful, actually. Let's see. So that's the rank stuff. Then we've got conquest. So the weekly conquest gold cards have been reduced from 4 to 3. They say this is to ensure that we maintain a steady stream of gold cards before future economy updates. What this basically means is that they are trying to keep the economy fresh, so that when as they like do other updates that they have planned on the roadmap, it doesn't become too easy to get gold cards or whatever. Like they're trying to basically keep the economy stable. This is a good thing, I think. They reduced it from 4 to 3. That's going to mean that when there is a gold card in Conquest that you want, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get it than it normally would be. Well, not a lot easier, but slightly easier to get it. Let's go over to Conquest real quick. So this week's gold cards are Earth Golem, Get 'em Gang, Mad Hat, and Hurricane. Let's say that I really want to Get 'em Gang. Well, if I were to play through Conquest, the chance of me getting that card is 1 out of 4, or 25%. But with them reducing the amount of cards to 3, my chance would be 1 out of 3, or 33%. So my percentage of the percent that I will get the card that I want increases by about 8% with this change. And it has another benefit of like keeping the economy fresh in general. So I think that's another good change. It says quests can no longer be completed in versus bots games. So some of you may have been cheesing the quest system. I didn't even know that you could do this, but some of you may have been cheesing the quest system by doing versus bot games because they're like really easy. But you can no longer do that. However, I do think that you can do private matches and complete quests. I'm pretty sure you can complete quests in private matches. So if you want to if you still need to do quests and you don't want to risk the biscuit in ranked, just try private matches. I think that works. Let me see here. And then the last change is they increased the amount of XP quests reward as a whole. So if I'm reading that correctly, I think what they mean is that the quests that you complete, let's go to the quests real quick. So as you can see, the daily quests, we have 50 XP, 100 XP, and 200 XP for the daily quests. Then we got weekly quests of 250, 500, and 1,000. And we got seasonal quests of 500, 1,000, 2,000. I think what they mean is that they're just increasing the amount of XP you're going to be able to get from each quest. So it's probably going to be, for dailies, 100, 200, 400. For weeklies, 500, 1,000, 2,000, and then for seasonals, maybe 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, something like that. They're just increasing the overall amount of XP you get for quests, which is going to make it easier for people to get cards. I think that's a good thing, especially because they're releasing 100 plus cards right now in tomorrow's patch. So with them releasing that many cards, we're going to need a good way to get the cards. Like, we're gonna need like a better way to get the cards. So I like that. And then we got a bunch of bug fixes. I'm just gonna quickly scan over these real quick. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this section. I'm just gonna quickly glance over these to see if there's something that was like kind of broken that I might have missed. Let's see. Crash. Oh, wow. So that's interesting. So there was a bug where if you put 2 reef divers out on the same turn, they would actually come out. There would be a third one that would come out when they because the effect of the reef divers is when you play it, it leaves the board and then it comes back the next turn. But this bug made it to where if you played 2 of them on the same turn, when they came back, a third one would come back with them. That's a very interesting bug. Yeah, that shit's kind of wild. You get a whole extra. Yeah, that's enough to like actually change the course of the game for sure. And so the unit in this game is called Reef Diver, and so not only does it, so when you play it, it disappears and then it comes back the next turn, but it also has the trait of dash, which in this game means that when the unit comes onto the board, you can immediately attack with it. You don't have to wait a turn to attack. So yeah, so the fact that there was a bug that gave you 3 of these instead of 2 means that normally you would only be able to do 4 damage that turn, but with this bug you could do 6 because they each have 2 attack. Yeah, that's a pretty strong. That's actually pretty strong because there's a break point in this game as far as like early game damage of about 4 attack. If you can do 4 points of damage on one turn within the first, like, I'd say like 3 to 5 turns, you could basically kill anything that anybody can put out. 4 damage is like the break point. That's why there's only like a couple of spells that allow you to do 4 damage in the early game. So the fact that you could do 6 with the same amount of mana is like, yeah, that seems like a pretty interesting bug. It's not like super game breaking, but I would imagine that some people probably started building their decks around it. All right, so that's all the changes, fixes, new additions, features, artwork, all that improvements. That's all the new stuff in this patch. Actually, no, I lied. There are cards that they added. I'm just going to briefly go over this paragraph here. It says, alongside our new onboarding system, users will be provided with new starter decks, each featuring 25 entirely new cards. Okay, alright, I see what they're doing. Okay, so the new cards we're getting this patch are linked to the starter decks, the new starter decks. It says many of these are intended as cards for new users to explore and learn with, but there are a number that should help foster entirely new strategies and support existing ones. However, beyond even these 120 plus new cards, well, I'm not going to say plus, 125 new cards, an even more influential gameplay element has arrived in the form of our first 5 hero abilities. For the time being, these are granted to mono prism heroes, bridging the gap between the viability of mono and dual prism heroes, which has historically been heavily in the favor of dual prism. However, for all fans of dual prism heroes, they will have their own less powerful hero abilities, which will start rolling out in August. Like I said before, I really don't think dual prism heroes need abilities, and I really feel like it may be more trouble than it's worth to give them abilities. However, they did say here that the dual prism abilities are going to be less powerful. So they probably have that in mind, that like the mono prism hero should be the focus for that. And I'm seeing that. So this is my thing. I hope that, because I've noticed a pattern for like the past, I don't even know how long. I've noticed a pattern for a while where they have been buffing the shit out of agility. No, really, it's strength. Agility is just already super powerful. It's agility is the strongest prism. It has been the strongest prism for a long time. But strength, they have been buffing the shit out of it over and over again. And I think that the reason they were doing this was because they wanted Ada to be strong. But hopefully what they do is they nerf some of the strength shit back in line with everything else. And because now they have an ability, so they don't need super buffed up cards. I don't know. I feel kind of weird about the agility and strength thing, but Let's go through the discovery rates. This is going to show you why I feel the way I feel about strength and agility. Let's see here. So these rates, these numbers on the screen, oh, they don't show the win rate. Oh, I've got to download the Excel sheet for that. Okay, I'm gonna do that. Give me a second here. I'm gonna download the Excel sheet for the win rates for this last this last season. Oh, it doesn't show the win rates here either. Okay, all right. Well, apparently this season they do not want to show us the win rates. That's interesting. This season they're only showing us the discovery rate, which is really just a matter of popularity. They're showing us how popular all these cards are. They're not showing us how well they perform. I'm just gonna, so that's gonna make this part of the stream a little bit quicker. So I'm seeing here that the average rate of use for agility cards in this game seems to be about 0.6 to 0.7%, somewhere in that range. For agility. Now let's look at heart. The average rate here seems to be about, I'd say 0.5 to 0.6%. So it's heart is used a little bit less than agility, but not much, not by much. And then we've got, where is, I guess we're going to intellect. Intellect is, the average rate I would say seems to be about 0.4%. Actually, intellect seems to be pretty volatile. There is a lot of like 0.3 and 0.4% cards, but there's also a good amount of like 0.8% cards. So if you kind of average that in the middle, I'd say it's about 0.5%. And then we have strength, which seems to be averaging about, I'd say 0.6 to 0.7, about the same amount as agility, actually. Maybe a little bit less, because it's not quite as steady as agility's. I'm seeing a little bit of volatility in strength, but I'd say it's about, it's like a little bit less used than agility. And then we've got wisdom, which is very volatile, similar to intellect, where there is a lot of 0.3% stuff, but then there's a lot of 0.8 and 0.9% stuff. So I'd say that probably averages out to about 0.5% as well. So if you look at purely popularity of these cards, how often they are used, it's pretty clear that agility is the most used prism, but the rest of the prisms seem to be used about the same rate, at about the same rate. With strength and heart being maybe slightly above the other two. So I'd say it's looking like agility is number one, strength and heart are tied for number two, and then wisdom and intellect are tied for last place. And this is just for popularity. However, even though they didn't give us the win rates this patch, I have been watching the win rates basically every week for the past, I don't know, a few months or whatever. Like I've been watching the win rates, and the win rates are, if you look at it in order of like agility, strength, heart, wisdom, intellect, wisdom, it has the same ranking. Like the win rates, agility tends to win the most, strength wins the second most, heart wins the third most, intellect wins wisdom wins the fourth most, and intellect wins the last. Like that is the trend in this game that I've noticed with win rates. However, one thing that I want to point out is that the popularity of these cards is a lot tighter than the win rates. Because with the win rates, agility clearly outperforms everything else. And it's not even close. And honestly, the same thing with strength. Strength has a clear lead on all the other prisms except for agility. And then, if anything, heart, wisdom, and intellect are all pretty tight. But like strength and agility are just clearly better than the rest of them. Whereas if you look at the popularity, the only one that's clearly more popular than the rest is agility. But like strength is like just as popular as the other stuff. So that's very interesting. It's only slightly more popular than other stuff. So it's very interesting how you kind of, if you look at the numbers, you kind of see the same pattern. You see the same thing between popularity and win rate, but it's much tighter when you're looking at popularity. I think that's actually pretty interesting. And yeah, so that does it for all the boring shit. All the numbers and the new features and whatnot. But let's go ahead and look at the abilities and some of the new cards. And some of the buffs and nerfs as well. So here, they're just going more in detail into the abilities and the starter decks. So we've already gone over the abilities. I don't need to go over that again. Let's just go to the starter decks. So for Ada's starter deck, it says mechanically, Ada's starter deck is focused around summoning and buffing units to dominate the field of battle, which is just like I was saying earlier. Your main thing you should be doing with strength is getting 1 or 2 units out on the board and just keeping them on the board. And it says this is bolstered by a number of units that have effects which trigger when an ally unit gains power, further supporting the buff-centric theme of the deck. Thematically and aesthetically, the deck is centralized around Treefolk and Armis units, as these were 2 of the most iconic Earth and Metal factions in the game, and present a compelling outward image of quote-unquote strength by being tough and heavily armored. As well as embodying the eternal willpower and determination the prism represents. I think that's a pretty clear theme, actually. They have been giving the heroes more identity, like better, like more of an identity over time, and they've decided to go with Treefolk and Armis units. I think that's great. I think it really works with her as a character, and I think that it works with the way they've like designed everything. I think that's a good idea. And then let's move on to the Samya starter deck. So it says, mechanically, Samya starter deck focuses on aggressively rushing down the enemy and winning quickly. The deck also reinforces agility's focus on attacking with your hero. So this is what I was talking about earlier when I was saying agility prism typically has a lot of recoil and focuses on attacking a lot. So it says a number of the new cards support this strategy by helping to prevent damage to your hero. So what they are doing right now by making this deck is I don't know how to feel about this, because these cards that, like, here's the thing. All right, here's the thing. Agility is the most powerful prism in the game. I don't think there's any dispute in that. But the one weakness that prism has is the recoil damage. It's the fact that whenever you make a big play with agility, you have to sacrifice health to do it. So with them putting more cards in the game which nullify the recoil, they're essentially taking away her only weakness. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that this is only going to further make agility the best prism. I don't think that I personally think that that's not going to change. Agility's going to continue to be the best prism until they reverse course on that. Like, I really don't think they should be giving her a bunch of recoil nullification options. It takes away her only weakness. I don't know. It's not a big deal because it's not like any of these prisms are unbeatable or anything like that. It's not like a super big deal, but it is kind of annoying that that prism is just so strong. Where it's like, if you want to compete in like conquest or anything like that, you're pretty limited in like what you can play in conquest. You really only gonna see like cities and Iris and I don't know, a couple other people. Let's see. It says so first for agility, the deck is themed around Signin and Vulpine units. So Signin is like the bird race in this game. I guess I didn't explain that with the strength. So tree folk are like the tree people in this game. It's pretty self-explanatory. Armis units are like the soldiers in this game. They're like, I really don't know the lore behind them. I don't think there is much lore behind them at the moment, but I know that they are like almost like stormtroopers. They're like Empire soldiers, basically. And then for agility, we've got Signins, which are like the bird people race. And then we've got Vulpine units, which are like the dog race, or the dog race, the wolf race, the fox race. Like there's like dogs, foxes, and wolves in the Vulpine race. And it says these iconic factions embody concepts of speed, freedom, and stealthiness. Painting a compelling image of agility and the concepts it embodies. All right. Then we've got the Buran starter deck. So it says Buran's starter deck mechanically focuses on Heart's already established identity of reviving and sacrificing units. I definitely think that out of all the factions in the game, the most well-defined prisms are the Heart prism, and I'd say probably at this point the Agility prism. Those are the most well-defined prisms in the game. They have a very strong identity. You know when you're going up against a Heart player. There's no second guessing that. The way, just the way it works out. It says the deck features a large number of death units, death effect units, as well as ways to recycle and reuse them. Aesthetically, the deck is themed around the Hexbound faction, which is the Darkness faction, and then the Royal Mummy faction, which is the Light faction. These two groups of the undead, zombies and mummies, showcase the duality of the Heart Prism's focus on death and life. While the Hexbound are a horde of ravenous undead that deal death, the Royal Mummies of Rashida are a holy order of undead who serve as noble protectors of the living. Now, this is some new lore shit going on. The main way that we get lore in this game is that they will drop cards, and if you read the card description, it'll tell you something about the card or about the unit or whatever. And some of these descriptions will give you little lore bits, little pieces of lore. So that's been the main way to get lore, or reading the patches as well. The patches and the card descriptions are like the two main ways to get the lore in this game. So I didn't know that the mummies in this game had a continent or a realm or something that they were all from, but apparently it's called Rashida. And the mummies are basically, it seems like the mummies are like a monk thing, like a monk sect or something like that. It's kind of interesting. Now we've got the Ari starter deck. So it says Ari starter deck is mechanically focused around cards that benefit from you casting spells. We already all know this. Intellect is all about the spells. You can damn near make a whole deck full of spells with intellect. And it says, which can be provided by your hero ability as well as by a... Oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh my God, I can't wait to try this. I am going to drop a primer video on YouTube. I'm gonna do a YouTube short. Oh, what's up? Watch you get shit on. I didn't even notice you were in the chat. Thanks a lot for joining, man, or lady, whoever you are. Appreciate you for joining the chat and spamming all your emotes and shit. They're pretty funny. What's this one? I like this one. I like this one where the troll is like humping the air. I like that. I also like the cockroach doing a little dance. That one's cool too. But yeah, so like I said, thank you for tuning in. We're going over patch 118 at the moment. This is the newest patch in Skyweaver. Maybe you've never played Skyweaver. If you haven't, I highly suggest you give it a shot. I haven't really been into card games since I was young, since I was like 20 years ago. But this particular game, I think, stands out. It's a very interesting game. I think it has a lot of potential and a lot of room to grow. It's already very well polished, so I think it's going to become like relatively popular at some point. And it has the cryptocurrency aspect to it, which I think is very unique. And the way that they handle the cryptocurrency is very unique as well. I've played other cryptocurrency games, and they tend to be very greedy. They tend to be pump and dumps. They tend to be very like shady. Whereas this game is like very professional about it. It's not a pump and dump. They're not trying to sell you on anything necessarily. It's just a tight game. It's just a good game with a additional crypto element on it. But you can tell they focused on the gameplay first. So I, highly encourage you to play it if you haven't already played it. But let's get back to the patch here. So they're talking about Ari. This is one of the first heroes you're going to unlock in the game. And it's these are the new starter decks they're putting into the game tomorrow. It says aesthetically the deck is focused around Tortugan and Masked Dreamer factions. So the Tortugans are the turtles in this game. There's like a race of turtle people. But the Masked Dreamer factions, I don't really know anything about this race. I've played with masked people in Intellect, like Arcadium Mask is one example. What's it called? Magnanimous is another example. I'm assuming that's who they're talking about here, but I don't know anything about this race other than that they wear masks and they seem to be very like book heavy. Like they read a lot of books and shit. Hopefully we'll learn more about the lore. But it says two key rep. What is that? Yeah, it's kind of cultish for sure. It's like a secret society almost. That's the kind of vibe I get from those cards. It's like a secret society kind of thing. So they represent water and mind, the water and the mind elements respectively. And they closely embody the endless curiosity, perceptiveness, and thirst for knowledge that intellect embodies. So, as you can see, they're basically laying out for you how each prism has certain elements that it like focuses on. So, I'm just going to go through them. For strength, earth and metal are the main elements. For agility, air and fire are the main elements. For heart, darkness and light are the main elements. For intellect, water and mind are the main elements. And then we've got the last prism here, which is wisdom. And the main elements for this are, let's see, it doesn't actually say here, actually. But I can tell you that honestly, so the funny thing about wisdom is like a rainbow prism. Honestly, wisdom doesn't really have any particular element that it focuses on. It has all elements. It's a rainbow faction. There's a lot of cards in this prism that give you like buffs and give you like really good effects if you have a lot of different elements in the deck. Like for example, I'm gonna pull us over to the deck creator here. If we go to Wisdom real quick. Oh, they removed that. Okay, you used to be able to. Let me see. You used to be able to filter things by the prism. Oh, here it is. All right. So if we go to Wisdom here, you'll see that a lot of the like highest cost cards in the prism, a lot of the like game finishers and stuff, they have effects like this one. Once per game, dust this unit to return your top highest cost dead card of each element to the deck with -2 cost. Or you'll have this dragon called Comet, and its effect is if you have dead cards of all 8 elements, you do 3 damage to every enemy on the board as soon as it's played. Or this one, Sky Phoenix, which this is a really popular card, and I actually plan on making a video about this card and about the decks that you can make with this card, because you can actually make decks that are centered around this card. But this card's effect is dust your other top 8 dead cards of different elements. So essentially, you have to have all 8 elements in the grave to summon this unit back to the board after it dies. So basically, this card can keep resurrecting itself over and over again. Yeah. You can if you make the deck properly, you're never gonna get rid of this card from the board. Because it has a lot of stats. It has big stats, and the effect is pretty ridiculous. You just keep bringing it back. It's pretty wild. This is a card. Sky Phoenix is a card that you have to dust. If somebody plays this card against you, you have to dust it. Which brings me to a point, actually, like this is kind of random, but I always keep at least one dusting option in my hand. Pretty much always. I try to keep it, like I will not use my dusting option until I know that it's the right time. Because there's certain cards that if you don't dust them, they completely change the game, and they're very hard to deal with if you don't dust them. Sky Phoenix is one of those cards. But yeah, that's what Lotus is about. He's all about rainbow stuff, like all the elements together. So it says here, mechanically, the Lotus starter deck features a number of cards that become more powerful for every 5 max mana you've gained, as well as cards that allow you to increase your max mana, letting you build into the late game faster and dominate your opponents with cards that scale up with your maximum mana and your superior resource generation abilities. Basically, there are a lot of like max mana increase cards in Wisdom. I don't think there's enough to warrant the ability they gave him. Because there's only like, I don't know, there's like maybe like 5 cards that increase your max mana, maybe. You know, it's not like a whole lot. So I don't know. I feel like the ability they gave him is pretty weak. But it says aesthetically, Lotus's deck was a bit harder to make cohesive since Wisdom embodies all elements. The deck features 2 new types of elemental creatures, Wisps and Scions. So while the deck has units of many elements, they all belong to a cohesive group. Wisps and Scions, these are new. To my knowledge, I don't think there's any cards that belong to these races. So they've introduced 2 whole new races to the game for Lotus. And that does it. That's all of the starter deck stuff that they have to share with us. So I'm going to go straight into the buffs and nerfs. I'm going to take a break here for a second to say thank everybody for joining the stream. We had 7 people in here a couple minutes ago. I see a couple people have left. Somebody else joined. Um, it's hard for me to pay attention to the chat while I'm going through the patch notes, but I'm trying to like take a break every few minutes to kind of check up. And thank you guys for joining into the stream. After the patch review, we're gonna play a few games, just to basically like, I don't know, reminisce on what they're about to change. Maybe we're not gonna be playing a whole lot today. Because I've got some people in the Discord that I promised to play some other games with, but we will play a few games after the patch review here. Oh, we're good. We're good. We're good. I'm just gonna play a few games, and so like I said, thank you guys for showing up. My name is S Blue, by the way. As far as this game is concerned, I am a pretty like known figure in the game for different reasons. I'd say probably the most notable thing is that I found a strategy not that long ago that completely broke the game, and the devs had to address it. And I've been playing the game since the beta, and I've gotten a few of my friends to start playing it and stuff. I really believe in this game. I really do. If you guys want to trade cards with me, just, I guess, DM me, or maybe you can join the Discord and DM me there. And yeah, I'd be down to trade cards with people and, all that kind of stuff. These cards are worth real life money. So keep that in. It's real money on the table, so keep that in mind. If you want to make a trade with me that is highly like a unbalanced trade, and I know that, I'm probably going to try to play you for it. Like, I'm not gonna just make stupid trades. You're gonna have to beat me if you want me to make a stupid trade. But if it's a reasonable trade, we can just trade. But yeah. Let's go ahead and get back to the patch here. Let's see. All right. So the first, they buffed and nerfed 16 cards this patch. First one on the list is Griff Scout. This is a Strength Prism card, and what they did is they took away the armor it had. It had an armor trait, which was a really annoying thing sometimes, but. They took it away, but they gave it 2 more health. And they took away the spell from it. All right. I think that net makes this card bad. I don't know about bad, but I think it's bad. I think it's probably, I would say it's just bad now. So apparently their reasoning here is that the attached spell that it used to have. So the attached spell it used to have is called Bolster. Let's go ahead to the deck list and check it out. All right. So this is Griff Scout. Griff Scout, as you can see, it has a card. It has a spell attached to it called Bolster. And what it does is it gives a target ally unit +1/+1 in guard. And then it attaches itself to your hero at +1 cost. And so every time you use this card, it costs 1 more mana to use it. But it stacks on your hero, so you can just keep it on your hero through the whole game and just keep buffing stuff on your side of the board throughout the game. Super strong. With them taking away that spell and removing the armor from it, I don't think this is a good trade-off, because they gave it 2 more health, but like it only has 4 health. That's hard to kill in the early game, but like, I don't know, man. I don't think it's that hard to kill, bro. I don't know. I feel like this card's gonna fall off. It's like, yeah, man, it's not. And you know, I have a deck that uses Griff Scout as actually like a pretty pivotal card in the deck. Um, oh, actually, I took it out. Never mind. All right, so I was ahead of the curve. I used to use Griff Scout in this deck here. This deck is called Engine Number Nine. Uh, I call it that because I just like the song. To keep it real with you, and I guess the idea behind it is that this deck is all about like having cards that like generate other cards. So that's like an engine. So I don't know, but yeah, Griff Scout used to be in this deck. Um, Damn sure not putting it back in the deck now. That's for sure. Now the next card we've got Fan Dancer. They changed the name of Fan Dancer to Philippa. So it has a name now. It's not just Fan Dancer. It has an actual name now. And they changed the design of it. He actually looks pretty cool now. I actually like this design better than the last one. The last one, I'm gonna show y'all what he looked like. The last design for this looked like he was a 2 or 3 cost. Which one was he? I think he was a 3 cost. I don't see him in here. Where's he at? Where is he at? Fan Dancer. Oh, that's a strength card, isn't it? There it is. Yeah, so this is the original Fan Dancer artwork. He looked like a swan. A swan with a fan and like a monk outfit kinda. He looked like a martial artist. A swan that was a martial artist. Not a bad design, but I actually like this one better. He looks like he has more personality. Like there's more going on with him. It looks like he's got like dynamite in his backpack, and he's got like a webcam on his shoulder strap, and got a fucking shovel. I don't even know what he's doing with the shovel, but yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, he seems like an explorer or something like that. So yeah, that's all they did. They changed his name and his artwork. And it says that they did this in honor of somebody named Felipe Castangue, who is the head of product for Skyweaver. Yeah. Yeah, they literally named the card after him and made him look. Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like it. It looks cool, and I think that that's pretty interesting. That's the kind of thing that would make me make a deck around it. Like I like that idea. That there's like an actual human person that this card represents. um, yeah. So the next card here we have is Chromosaur. So they buffed it by reducing its cost by 1. And they kind of nerfed it. They slightly nerfed it by making the effect instead of, so it used to be whenever you summon it, it gives every 7 cost a higher unit in your deck and in your hand -2 mana cost as soon as you summon it. But now they changed it to where it only gives those cards -1 cost. And they also reduced the power and health of the card by 1. So this is, I would say, a net nerf. You can play it quicker because it's only 5 mana now. So you could play this card. I would say that in the past, this was I'd say this was like a end of the mid game card or the beginning of the late game type of card. But now it's like solidly a mid game or like maybe late early game card. But the effect is not as powerful. They said, we've been hearing the player base's concerns about this card. So yeah, apparently a lot of people have been complaining about this card. I don't think it was that. I actually like the effect of it, and I don't think it was that bad. But I also don't think that the way that they nerfed it, I don't think it's a bad nerf. Like I think I personally don't think it was warranted, but it's not a bad nerf. Like it's fine. It's fine. This card is still going to be good. It's still going to be used. You might not want to make a whole deck around it now because there were definitely I had made a whole deck around this card at one time. Actually, I have a Titus deck that was built exclusively around this card to where like all of my low cost cards were all spells and then all of my high cost cards were units. And so the deck was basically built to like keep the board clear until the late game and then just like smack you so hard you can't do anything about it. So I think that kind of deck is going to be less effective now, but I think it's still going to be a good card. Then we have Ether Lemur. Ether Lemur? I guess that's how you say that. Ether Lemur. He looks like a lemur to me. So the effect was if your hand has a 7 cost or higher card, you gain +2 power and you add Ether Whale to your hand. And then they changed it to if your hand has a 7 cost or higher card, gain dash and add Ether Whale to your hand. So they took away the inherent dash it had and made it part of the effect. But they took the effect, part of the effect, and made that inherent. So this is like a rework. This isn't really a buff or a nerf. This is just a rework. I will say this card used to be very powerful. It still is powerful. Or yeah, like it used to be like even more powerful though, because Ether Whale is a card that allows you to play 2 units or summon 2 units instantly. And if you built your deck a certain way, you would only have maybe 5 units in the whole deck. So being able to play a card that just instantly summons those units for certain decks, that's super powerful. If the only 2 units you have in your deck is like a 10-10 unit with dash and armor that buffs everything as soon as you play it and all that shit. Like if you have like really powerful units as the only units in your deck, Ether Whale could be very powerful. However, I would say that Ether Whale has lost its utility a bit because as more and more cards have been introduced to the game, it's harder and harder to make a deck like that where you're only using a couple units. The only viable deck that I have seen like that recently is probably this. I'd say there's 2 decks. There's a City deck and there's a Titus deck that are like that where you only have a couple units in the deck. So this card is still going to be good for Titus. I don't see much of a reason to use it for anybody else. They took away the dash where you well, they didn't take it away, they just reworked it. I'm fine with that. I think this is one of those changes that this seems like a change that doesn't really like. This isn't because anybody asked for it. This just seems like something that like the devs just like kind of just want to do for some reason. Maybe something they're planning down the line. Then we got Orhart Brawler. So this is one of my favorite strength units, and it's actually a pretty new unit. I think they dropped this like I want to say like maybe 4 or 5 patches ago. Wasn't that long ago. And I love this card because this is a card where if you play this early enough, you instantly win the game. Like specifically if your opponent does not have a way to deal with it. If you like, this is a card where I have certain decks that I have this card in where I can play this card on turn 2. Even though it's a 4 cost card. You play it on turn 2. It has 6 health. So by turn 2 or 3, which is what your opponent will be on when you play it, there's nothing in the game that will kill this card. There's no 6 damage card that you can play on turn 2 or 3. unless you play like there's like actually there are a couple cards, but you would have to like know what you're doing. You'd have to know to play that. Like Germinate, for example, or I don't know. I think it's really just Germinate. Like there may be another card or two that I'm not thinking about. But anyway, they made it simpler. They made it where it used to have a slay effect. So anytime you slayed a unit with this, it would gain stats. But they took that effect away and just gave it more power, just straight up. And they also removed the spell that it had, and replaced that with an enchant called Lead. Now, I think that makes this a net nerf. They're saying that it's a rework. I think it's a nerf, because one of the best parts about playing this card was that if you played it early enough, they can't get rid of it, right? The only thing they could possibly do is maybe weaken it. But then when your next turn comes around, it had that attached spell on it that gives the stats back to it. So even if they were able to chip away at it a bit, it would just come back to full health usually, but with even more power this time. So it was just a really good card. And then the slay effect made it even worse, because if they didn't kill it and they played a unit, now you're just making it even stronger. That's like +5. Let's see. It would gain +2, +1, and then it would gain +3, +2. So that's +5, +3, which altogether is 8 points of stats in one turn. You could get 8 points of stats in one turn with this shit. It's pretty wild. On turn 3, no less. Like literally on the third turn. But yeah, they say that they're doing this to all of the Elemental Lord units, because this is an Elemental Lord. There's 4 Elemental Lords in the game right now, and so they say that they're simplifying all of the Elemental Lord cards. And they say they're doing this to help introduce the concept of enchants to new players. Hey, if you like it, I love it, baby. Then the next card, we've got Strike Storm. I am personally very attached to this card. This card was one of the best cards when I first started really getting good at like building decks. It was with agility. It was with Mai. I'd say it's either City or Mai, but it was probably Mai. And this card in particular has saved my ass so many times, I can't even count. Strike Storm is saved my ass a lot of times, but they keep nerfing it. Luckily, I don't really use agility much anymore, so I don't really care that they're nerfing it, but this is the second time they've nerfed it. It used to be 3 mana, and it didn't have banner. But now it's 5 mana, because they've nerfed it twice. They made it 4 mana and then they made it 5. I think they made it 4 and then they made it 4 and then 5. And now the effect is, instead of just doing raw damage to every enemy unit on the board according to how much power your hero has, now it says your hero cannot take damage this turn. Your hero attacks each enemy unit. Effectively, what this does is it gives you the same effect as it used to have, but it's actually a little bit better now, because it nullifies the recoil damage. It's another card that recoils that nullifies recoil damage now in agility. So you could use this card instead of something like Disciple of Gusto or Evasion or something like that. You could use this card. You could essentially, what they're doing is they're making where you could do this like every turn. Every single turn, you could just, if you have the right hand, you could just nullify your recoil every turn. I don't think that's wise. Personally, I think that agility is going to get out of control at a certain point. But yeah, exactly. No, it's interesting. So that's why I'm okay with it. It's interesting. Um, and they did slightly nerf it because they made it cost more mana. So it's technically a rework. This isn't really a net nerf or a net buff technically, but I do think that effect is kind of crazy. That shit's kind of nuts. Then you got Songwriter. This card right here has one of the highest win rates in the game consistently. Every time I look at the win rates, this card is one of the highest win rate cards. Which I go over these every week, once a week basically. Sometimes I miss a week, but generally every week. So let's see what they did with it. They nerfed its text effect a bit, and they buffed its stats a bit. So this is again a rework. I honestly think that this is kind of a net buff to this card because the Songbird having +1 power is not really necessary. Like, you don't use Songbird to attack generally. Songbird is just good to have on the board. You don't really want to. It's not. The point of it is not to attack with it. The point of it is just to keep it on the board so that you get the effect of having it on the board. So them taking away the +1 power, it's not really. I don't even think that's really. That's not a nerf in my opinion. And then they buffed its stats. So basically, they did something which is kind of like a neutral change. It doesn't really change anything, and then they gave it a buff. So in my opinion, that's a net buff. We will see. We will see if they release the win rates in the next patch. We will see if it goes down in win rate, but I highly doubt it. Then we've got Skyfire Master. This card is another Elemental Lord. And same thing as with the previous Elemental Lord. They took away the attached spell. They buffed its stats a little bit, and they simplified and nerfed its text effect. This one I would say is a net nerf, but again, they're trying to. There's obviously something that the devs are trying to do with that, with these Elemental Lords. There's like a certain direction they're trying to curb that. Then we have Whelm. This card right here used to be one of the best spells in the game. Basically, it was a card that is super low cost, and it would wipe the board. It's 3 mana. I think it might have even used to be 2 mana, and it would wipe the board in certain situations. Very powerful card, but they nerfed it recently. Technically, it's a rework, but I would say it was a nerf. Which is why this patch, they're buffing it. Because the last change was technically a rework, but I would say it was a nerf. So now they're buffing it to try to because they realized that they nerfed it. It's still pretty niche, I would say. But I would say this is a good buff. They made it where it does 3 damage to all 3 costs and less enemy units instead of 2 costs and less. I think that that's a pretty good buff because a lot of the good units in the game are 3 mana or more. So the way it was before, where it only affected 2 cost units or less, that shit wasn't doing anything. You know what I mean? Like 2 cost units are usually very easy to kill, and you're not worried about that a lot of times. But 3 cost, that might do something. That might do something. I might actually consider putting this card back into some decks. Then we got Cleo. Oh, I see. Okay, so With this one, there's no real change to this card, but because they have made the Royal Mummy, they have made that an independent unit now that you can put in your deck independently. Whereas it used to just be a token unit that you had to play certain cards to get out. So now they just kind of made it where they didn't really change this card. They're just updating it. Oh, what? What? They changed Gravekin. Gravekin is one of the first cards. So the first deck that I ever made in this game was a Horic deck. Actually, it might have been Mirror. It was either Mirror or Horic. But either way, one of those decks, the Mirror or the Horic deck, was my first deck. And Gravekin was one of the critical cards in that deck. Brood Witch, I would say, was the number, like that was like the card I had built it around. But Gravekin, they changed it. They changed the attach spell from Bone Mask to Invasion. Let's take a look at this real quick. I'm going to the deck builder here. All right, so as you can see here, at the moment, this is a 2/5 unit with Bone Mask attached to it. Pretty useful card, honestly, especially for certain types of decks. Like I had a Horic deck that basically the concept of that deck was that I put a lot of guard units out and basically made it where you can't get to the Brood Witch. And I had like Wind Sword in it so that I could put Shroud on her as soon as I played her, and that would make it to where you couldn't target her with a spell. So basically, the deck was centered around setting up the board in a way where I could play Brood Witch and she would be unkillable, and then it would just result in an instant win basically at that point. If you let me get to turn 9 with that deck, I was pretty much guaranteed to win. But with this change to the Gravekin, they removed Bone Mask and replaced it with, it says Invasion. This looks like Dark Rune to me. Look here. So this card right here is Dark Rune. It looks exactly like this attached spell. I really hope that they didn't nerf that card, because that's going to fucking suck. I might have to, actually, it's not a might. I will have to change at least one of my decks around. If not, I'd probably have to change like 2 of my best decks, if that's the case. Summons 2 Zomboid. Summon for a starter deck. Oh, I see. So I think what's going on here is that the artwork is like different. Like they didn't update the artwork. They have the artwork for Dark Rune, but this Invasion spell they're talking about is a new card that they're adding to the game, which allows you to summon 2 Zomboid instantly. Okay, I see what's going on. So, which actually that's pretty cool. I am probably gonna have to put that card in my deck, Invasion, because I have a Zomboid deck that actually needs more ways to get Zomboids out. That's the flaw in the deck right now. The flaw in that deck is that I don't have enough ways to get my Zomboids out at the moment, and I've been trying to figure out how to get it right. Recently I added Hexed Doll to it so that I could draw more dark cards at will, and then hopefully that would like get me to my Zomboids quicker. That's my solution at the moment, is to just like draw the shit in a weird way. But if they're adding a card that just instantly puts Zomboids out, that might be a better call actually. It depends. My decks, I like to make my decks very like mana. I like to build my decks based on the mana curve. If the mana curve does not look pretty to me, then I don't like the deck. Generally speaking. There's a couple exceptions to that, but for the most part, I like the mana curve to be a certain way. We've got the next card is Eclipse Mummy. This is another elemental lord. Same thing as with the others. They buff the stats, nerf the text effect, and took away the attached spell. Replaced it with an enchant. Then we have Timber. The death effect. Oh, damn. I didn't even notice that. Okay. All right. So they buffed this card recently, which I didn't even notice. I don't see many decks that use this card. Like, when I play a city, I expect to see this card. But I haven't been seeing many cities lately. So that's why I haven't really been seeing this card. But City has a deck that is extremely powerful, actually, where she only has like 3 or 4 units in the deck. Out of 30 cards, only 3 or 4 of them are units. But what she does is she copies them and she kills them. She copies them. She recycles them. So even though she only has like 3 or 4 units in the deck, she's able to like keep putting them out on the board as if she has like, 20 units in the deck. And dog, that shit is wild. It's a very strong deck. It's, in my opinion, I'd say it's one of the strongest decks in the game. It's a top 3 deck in my opinion. Like at any given time, at any given time, I would say it's like a top 3 deck, bro. That shit's strong. Yeah, because so like I said, only 3. Most of the cards in her deck are spells that allow her to keep copying and recycling and doing all that shit. And specifically, the units that she puts in that deck are units with death effects that are really fucking annoying. Like, she will have a Flame Phoenix in the deck that has and the death effect of that one is that it does 2 damage to every enemy on the board when it dies, and it puts a spell in your deck called Fireball that costs 8 mana, but it does 10 damage to anything on the board, and then 3 damage to 2 of the things beside that thing. And including the enemy hero. You don't even have to attack a unit with it. You could just shoot it straight at the hero and just win the game right there. And she can keep bringing it back. That's the crazy part. She can keep doing it. She can keep bringing it. So, like, sometimes what you'll see is, like, so the way that deck works is that she basically, whatever unit she gets in the early game, that's the unit that she's going to base the rest of her gameplay around for the rest of the match. So let's say, for example, that because you can't necessarily tell what unit, like what card you're going to get in your hand, right? You can try to like put certain draw spells and shit like that in there to increase the chances that you get certain cards. But in this particular deck, she doesn't even need that. She gets whichever of the 3 or 4 units is in the deck. Once she gets one of them, everything is built around spamming that unit. So if she gets Flame Phoenix first, she's just going to spam the shit out of Flame Phoenix. And then when the end game comes around, she's going to start spamming fireballs at you. And you're basically on a countdown. You're basically on a clock at that time. You're on a shot clock. Like, yeah. Basically, she's going to kill you. She's going to kill you, but it becomes a race of like who can kill who first. She's not going to fail. She's going to kill you. Very strong. But then you have like this card, for example. If she gets this card first, then she does the same thing. She recycles it. She copies it. She, doubles it, blah, blah, blah. But this card's effect is that when it dies, it does 5 lifesteal damage to the rightmost enemy on the board. So what she'll do is she'll spam this shit. And in this game, 5 damage is a lot of damage. Like I was telling you before, 4 damage is like the break point. Right. Four is like your typical break point of like you're doing a good amount of damage if you can do 4. But 5 is like 5 is enough to kill most things. And on top of that, if she keeps doing it, if she keeps spamming it like they do, it does lifesteal damage. So that means if it hits the enemy hero, not only does it do 5 damage, but it heals her for 5 damage. So effectively, you're making a 10-point gap between you and your hero, you and your opponent. I mean, this one card creates a 10-point gap. And again, like I said, she keeps spamming it, so it's gonna keep widening that gap. It's crazy. So basically, all they did with this card in this patch is they made it where recently they had buffed it. Actually, I don't know why. I really don't know why. This was one of those cards that I was looking at and I was like, I don't know why they did that. Like this card was already powerful. I really didn't understand why they did that, but they went back on their decision and they nerfed it back to where it was before. So it's whatever. This next card, Magnanimous. This is another card that I really don't understand why why they changed it. It wasn't that powerful of a card. They nerfed it recently. But it seems that they are buffing it. This is more of a actually, I'd say this is a net nerf. They're nerfing it again. This one I understand why they are changing it because the effect is pretty powerful. The effect, I think the longer the game lifespan goes on, the more powerful this effect is going to get. So I can understand why they're nerfing it. They're trying to future-proof this card, basically. Yeah. But it will be. Yeah, exactly. This shit will be crazy. So I can understand why they're doing that. This was a card that actually was in my most recent mirror deck. It was in that deck for a long time, but when they nerfed it in like a couple patches ago, they nerfed it, and so I took it out of the deck because I was like, nah, it doesn't work with my deck anymore. And I still am not going to put it back because they're nerfing it. They're reworking it in a way where it's like earlier. It's easier to play this card. It comes out earlier, but the effect is not strong enough, and it doesn't have the attached spell thing, which was really the only reason I put it in that deck. It had an attached spell that allowed you to draw 2 mind cards specifically, and so the reason why I kept that card in the deck and why it was so critical in that deck is because I had one other mind card in the deck, and that mind card had an effect where when it died, it created a mind spell that was a match finisher card called Uniphobia. So what that means is that at any given point in time, I only had 2 other mind cards in the deck. So when it used to have that spell that draws 2 mind cards, it was guaranteed to pull me the other cards that I needed to like do the combo. So basically, it was the way they had made it. It was a card where not only did it guarantee me my combo, but it also reduced the cost of my combo as well. Yeah, it was multi-purpose. And it had guards, so it did other things for me. Like it was a very good card for my deck, but I would say it's not so much anymore. For this one, this is Shell Officer. They took away the armor from it and they buffed its health, and they took away lead from it. I would say that this is maybe a net buff. but maybe a rework. Um, I don't think it's a nerf. I don't think it's a nerf, really. Um, yeah, I would say this is like a slight buff. Then we got Star Citation. Okay, so this is the. I think this is the final Elemental Lord. Yeah, this is the fourth one, the final Elemental Lord. Same thing as with the others. Buffed its stats, um, nerfed its effect, and replaced its spell with an enchant. Um, this one, yeah, this is another one that I would say is maybe a net nerf because the effect was pretty good. When you slay something with it, it would attach barrier to everything, all of your units on the board. And so I have a deck, I have a Ari deck where I put enchants on all of my units, and I would either put anima or vapors or something like that on all the units, and then I would slay something with this, and it would instantly buff every unit on the board. That shit is nasty when you pull it off. Yeah, that shit would have. It's basically like a mass buff card if you use it right, or it used to be. They just nerfed it, but I used to use it like that, where I would put it out and just everything on the board would become super strong. The problem with it was that it's really just that like it's kind of hard. You have to make your deck a particular way to make it work like that, um, and it's not the strongest like type of deck. You know what I mean? It's not a crazy strong deck. So yeah, but it's fun. It's super fun to use because niggas don't expect it. It's a very like uncommon card to see, so people usually don't know what to do about it. They usually just kind of leave it on the board because they're like, it's probably not that good. And then you just do some sick shit, and then they're like, oh damn, I kind of have to worry about that card. So that's it for all the buffs and nerfs. The rest of these cards, so they are giving us a sneak peek at 20 of the new 130 plus new cards that they're about to put in the game tomorrow. So the majority of those cards, we don't know what they are or what they do, but we've got 20 here. I'm just going to briefly go over these because it's not much I can say about them since they're not in the game yet. I don't know how they're going to perform. So first one, we got Septic Sapling. It's a 2-cost Earth unit with Wither, and 2/4 stats. Says the effect is after this unit gains power, do 1 damage to a random enemy unit. So because this card has Wither, it means that the 1 damage effect also will have Wither. So this is almost like a cheaper version of Swamp Walker. Swamp Walker is a 4-cost unit that also does 1 Wither damage, based on its effect. So it's like a cheaper version of that. And then we have Treefolk Sapling, which is just like a little token 1-cost card with good stats. It's a 2/3 unit with it costs 1 mana. So yeah, cute little card. Then they gave us a 10-cost card. This one is called Chithonos the Sealed. Chithonos the Sealed. And this is a 10-cost metal unit. And the stats are 10/10. So it's a 10 cost with 10 strength and 10 of health. And when you play it, it fills the board with Treefolk Saplings. And it gives every unit on your side of the board +2/+1. This is a very strong card. This is basically a cross between King Ultra. Oh, what is his name? Fuck, I forgot his name. This is like a cross between. Let me look it up real quick. This new card that they're doing. This like a cross between King Ultron the 11th and BFR 9001. It's kind of like a cross, or really, it's like a cross between like King Ultron the 11th and like Tree Folk Sapling and like BFR. It's got the stats of BFR 9000. It's got the effect of like King Ultron. So that's an interesting one. I think that one is going to see a lot of play. That one's probably going to be meta. Then we've got Overgrowth. This game, all your earth and metal units have +1/+1. Draw an earth or metal unit. This one is also probably going to be meta. Because it has an effect that lasts for the whole game. So it's like these types of cards generally are the type of cards you could build your deck around. I have built decks around cards like this. As a matter of fact, I will be building a deck around this card. This is a card I will be building a deck around because I'm curious about what I can do with that. It has a very good effect, and in fact, I will be actually. This is probably the first card I'm gonna try to build a deck around. Because that shit looks good. It reminds me of like another deck I made. Actually, a couple decks I made. So, yeah. Then we got Solara, 3-cost unit with 3/3 stats, and whenever your hero attacks, you summon a Songbird. This is kind of like a cross between the Hexed Primalon and the it's like a cross between Hexed Primalon and Samia Speed or something like that. I think it's this actually is probably going to be a meta card too. I'm gonna keep it real with you. Yeah, this card's probably going to be meta. Especially now that all of the recoil is being nullified for agility. It's probably going to be pretty meta. Then we got Vulpine Merchant. 4-cost unit with 3/3 stats and banner. The effect is after your hero attacks, you draw a card. This card is probably also going to be meta because one of the like drawbacks of using agility is that there's not a lot of draw in that prism. So you can run out of cards. Like that's kind of the thing with agility is that it's very strong, but if you don't play it right, you can exhaust yourself very quickly. So this card, once again, removes that weakness, basically. Luckily, it's an effect that's on a unit. So all you have to do is kill this unit, and you can stop that shit. But the problem is that the effect is so powerful, all you have to do is play... As soon as you play this card... Actually, I'm looking at it now. It's a 4-cost card. So it's probably not going to be meta, actually. It costs too much. It costs too much for it to be meta. Yeah, which is a good thing, in my opinion. I fucking would hate to see this card a lot. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be meta. Just a decent card, but not good. Not great. Then we have... Erigos the Branded. Erigos the Branded. Oh. This nigga here looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh monster. What the hell? He looks like a seraphim, but the wings are made of flames, and the halo is also made of flames. but he also looks like a dragon. He looks like a fucking seraphim and a dragon had a baby. This shit looks crazy. It looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh, like a really powerful Yu-Gi-Oh creature to me, but less convoluted. Anyway, stats are 10 cost, and then 10/10 stats. Has -1 cost for each point of power your hero has. And as long as it's on the field, your hero has +5 power. They're calling these new 10 cost cards that they're introducing, they're calling these cards Titans. So we have Elemental Lords, and now we have Titans. These are the two like boss creatures we have in the game right now. Titans and Lords. The Lords are a bit less powerful, it seems. Like the Lords are like they're like mid game type stuff, whereas the Titans are like late game stuff. So the design is awesome. Honestly, I really like the design on this card. I feel like maybe the face could be a little bit more well defined. It looks like he has a crucifix on his face, which is interesting. It's almost like he was sealed or something like that. Like he was sealed and something like that. Yeah, very interesting. But that effect is insane. I think this is going to be a meta card. This card is going to be meta. So let me just keep a track real quick. We've gone over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards so far. And I think my call is that 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the 7 cards we've gone over so far are probably going to be meta. So what that says to me is that we are going to need to get these new cards very quickly. We're going to need to get these new cards fast because they are going to be like, I think they're going to be pretty strong. Next card here is called Fan Strike. It's a 1-cost spell for agility. And it's an air spell. The effect is your hero gains +2 health and attacks a target enemy unit. Essentially, this is another Samya Speed type of card, but you get health for attacking. I mean, I think that this is this card is a good card, but I think that the thing about it is like, does it deserve a slot in your deck? I'm not sure about that. It's a good standalone card. It's a good card on its own, but I feel like you would get this effect with other cards that would be more useful, really. Because gaining 2 health ain't shit. Especially since you can only do it one time. Like, it's not... That ain't shit. 2 health is like, that's literally nothing. I don't know. I feel like, but because, especially in agility, right? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Well, with this particular prism, that is how this prism plays. It sacrifices health for damage. Like there are prisms that are the opposite. Like I have a deck that I really like right now. It's an Axle deck, and the focus of this deck is gaining health. Actually, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like a war of attrition deck, but it's kind of meant to fake you out. Actually, it's a pseudo attrition deck. In the early game, I'm playing for Yeah, yeah. It's supposed to make you think. It's supposed to make you think that I'm playing defensively, but in reality, I'm just stacking my hand for a certain. I'm stacking my game state for a certain card. Um, so like it's a lot of health boosting shit in it, but that's not really the point. that's just the that's just the throw you off shit. Hmm. Yeah, I really fuck with it. It's not the best deck. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have juked the shit out of niggas with that deck. It's a I just like the feeling of using that deck because niggas just be like, what? Like I fucking love that deck. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's like other decks. When I say GG to my opponent, they usually say GG back, right? But with that deck, whenever I say GG, a lot of times they don't say GG back because they think that I'm not. They think there's no way I can win. Yeah, right. I love that shit. Uh, so we got somebody in the chat here named Allergento. I'm sorry if I missed you. You might have left the chat already. You might have left already, but if you are still in here, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Go ahead and smack the follow button. It's free. It helps me. It just helps me to kind of gauge like how many people I'm like giving the information to and like kind of reaching. So while you're here, if you are still here, I would appreciate it if you could give me a follow. Um, as far as what you typed in the chat, you said spoilers. Can you post the page link? And then you said Jungle Guide PogChamp. I'm not sure what all of that means. I think you are talking about the way that the cards look, like the aesthetics of it. It looks like some jungle stuff. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what you are mean by that, but I will post the link to the page for the patch notes because I think you were asking for that too. So give me a second here. Hmm. All right. So I put the link to the patch notes in the chat. I really should have done that like as soon as I started the stream, honestly. But I am pretty new to this stuff, so bear with me while I figure out how to do everything. Um, but yeah, the link is in there now. So if you want to follow along with me, just go ahead and click that link, and it'll take you straight to the patch notes. Um, we're almost at the end of them, by the way. We're like we have literally covered everything so far. We've covered the abilities, we've covered the new starter decks, we've covered the bug fixes, changes, quality of life changes, improvements, buffs and nerfs, discovery rates, like basically the entire patch. We're just on the last few new cards that they're introducing. Uh, so next card is called Sentinel of Kai. Sentinel of Kai. I'm gonna say that's pronounced Kai, or maybe Chi. It's either Kai or Chi. I don't know. Um, this card, let's see. It's a 3 cost with 2/5 stats, guard and life steal, and the effect is when it dies, destroy the lowest health enemy unit. This is a powerful effect, especially for a 3 cost unit. Yeah. Yeah. This is the type of card I like cards like this. This is the type of card where I would consider destroying my own unit. Like I would like let's say the enemy has a 10-10 unit on the board and I don't have any spells or anything that could like stop it. I don't have anything in my hand, I don't have anything on the field. I don't have nothing that can deal with that. What I would do is I would play this unit. I would save this unit for the end game, and then I would play this unit, and then I would play a spell that allows me to target my own units, and I would kill it as soon as I played it. Because if it's used in the right situation, that effect is more powerful than having the unit on the board. Actually, you know, if I kill my own unit, maybe it costs me, 6 mana to do this, to play the unit and then kill it. But I get rid of, a 10-10 unit for 6 mana when I didn't actually have any other way to deal with it. So that is a card that I am probably going to add to one of my decks. Matter of fact, I think this card would fit perfectly. And it has lifesteal. So it fits perfectly into the deck I was just telling you about, where I'm like gaining health and shit in the early game. Yeah, it fits right into it. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I know which unit I would replace too. I'm gonna replace. I have this unit in my deck called Archivist, and it's a good card, but it's not necessary. I think that's the one I'm gonna replace. That's a good ass card. Let me write that down real quick. All I'm doing here is I'm writing down like what cards I think I could use in my current decks I'm working with. And here we go. The Archivist swap for Sentinel of Kai. Yeah, I'm gonna try that. All right. So the next card we have here is called Royal Priestess. Uh, this is a 1 cost unit. With guard and lifesteal, and the death. Oh my gosh! Whoa, bro! They're giving me several cards that I could put in my deck in this deck. I don't think I'm gonna put this one in there, but I might have to bring Hexurit back into the deck because this shit is crazy. Hold up, let me see. No, because then I would have to make a whole new deck at that point. I might make a whole new deck around these cards. I like these cards. This card, when it dies, it adds a royal mummy to your hand. Which the royal mummy, when it dies, it gives your hero +2 health. And this only costs 1 mana. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it would work really well with the deck that I have right now. Although it's not, I'm probably not going to put this particular card in my deck because I have it set up a certain way where it's like I only have a limited amount of 1 cost cards in the deck, and they are solid. I'm not taking any of those out. So, but I do like the effect of both of these. Let me think here. Yeah. Then we've got the next card is called Join Void. Looks like a conjoined. It looks like a zombie that's a conjoined twin. Yeah, yeah. It's a zombie with a little zombie coming out of the big zombie's back. uh, Interesting little design. That last card, the Royal Priestess, looks like a baddie. She's like a Yeah, she looks like a mummy, a baddie that's a mummy. She got that hourglass shape. And we got King Boyd. Gain +1/+1 for each of your dead units. This joint could be. Oh! So this card has some lore. It says King Ultron the Ninth's rule may be long past, but his will to dominate persists even in death. So this card is actually the zombified version of King Ultron the Ninth. Which we have a card. We have a card called King Ultron the 11th in the game, actually. So that nigga's grandfather, that's what this card is. This card is that nigga's grandfather as a zombie. That is interesting. King Boyd. I might, bro. I have thought about that actually. I might. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 I fucks with it. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I actually have thought about it. So for the people in the stream that I don't know if you guys can hear the Discord or not. I suspect probably not. But somebody in the Discord just suggested that if I were to think about like doing some like audio, doing some like voice acting stuff for the lore of the game, just on my own, then like he would be willing to contribute, which I'm down for that. His name is Steez. I'm sure y'all are gonna probably see him just in some other shit I'm doing because the dude's super dope. And yeah, man, like I actually am thinking about doing some stuff like that. I think it would be super cool. Hell yeah. And because of like the fact that the game is so new and like I feel like there's a good chance that they'll end up using our ideas. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, there's a pretty strong chance that the shit that we do might end up in the game. I think. Because I know they've already done something like that too. I know it's not like with voice acting or lore or anything like that, but I know that there's a person in the game named Just Add Bacon, and he's a pretty prominent figure in the community. And I know that he has talked about like what if stuff with the lore, like he's like imagined stuff with the lore, and they ended up like hinting at that in the game. So I know that they pay attention to stuff like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hell yeah. That shit'll be dope. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Well, I'll say this. I'm willing to give you cards. I'm willing to just give you cards so that you can like get through a lot of the game like easier. You know, I'll just trade you cards. I'll just give them to you because the gold cards are the ones that are worth a lot of money, but the silver cards are usually worth like $1 to $2. So I don't mind just like yeah, hell yeah, yeah. I don't mind just giving you, you know, 30 of those silver cards. You know, just so you could just get through the game, or get through a lot of the early stuff. Uh, but let's see here. The next card we have is called Grizzled Fisher. This is a 3 cost unit. Stats are 1/6. Has guard and an attached spell. I'm guessing the attached spell is Spear Shot, which was referenced in an earlier card we talked about. Effect on this one is when this unit takes damage, add Spear Shot to your hand. Oh, and Spear Shot is a 0 cost spell. So what that means is that if you... Oh my god, I want to play... Oh my god. I'm going to build an Ari deck tomorrow. I got a few things I got to do. There's a few things I need to do. Yeah. Yeah, this shit's crazy. What's up? Um, I am not quite sure yet. Actually, they haven't told us what the effects are. But I suspect that it's probably like Zap, where it just does one damage to any like to an enemy. That's just what I suspect. They're withholding information about the new cards though. Like they want it to be a surprise. They want a lot of this shit to be a surprise. But um, just from like what I've seen, I would say it's probably like a Zap without lifesteal. Um, but this shit's sick because so this is an intellect unit. Um, and Ari has an ability now in this patch. He's getting an ability that makes it to where let's go back. Let's look at that real quick. I'm just gonna show you guys in the stream. I'm gonna show y'all what I'm thinking here. So Ari is getting an ability called Fabricate, and you can use it infinitely throughout the match. And you spend 1 mana to add the Spear Shot spell to your hand. Yeah, I'm almost at the end. I told you it would take a while. Yeah, it's a big patch. It's a huge patch. It's actually the biggest patch in the game so far. It's I've been streaming for like 2 hours and I'm still not done. Yeah, I'm about to be done. I'm gonna play a few Skyweaver matches, and then I'll be hopping on, DBD, Overwatch. Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir. But look, I'm telling my stream something real quick. Check it out. So this, I am thinking that I'm gonna make an Ari deck. I think that Ari might be viable now. I actually think this patch is about to make Ari viable. Fabricate is yeah, and I'm reading it now. Yeah, yeah. So because of his ability, he can generate as many spear shots as he has mana. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So specifically, this is going to be good against like I mean not against, but this is going to be good for like Ari and Banjo in particular. Banjo, it's going to be good for Banjo because Wisdom gives him access to a lot of the max mana increase type of shit, as well as basically shit that increases his mana temporarily. So if he uses that kind of stuff, like the mana increase stuff, it's going to make it to where he could just generate so many spear shots per turn that it's just like it's going to be ridiculous. Like, yeah, I think Ari and Banjo are about to be nasty. Banjo he's always been nasty, but I feel like he kind of fell off a little bit recently. But this is gonna make him viable again, I think, and it's gonna also make Ari viable. I'm kind of hype because if you combine this, so I'm reading it now. It says Spear Shot can be used to impale any enemy for 1 damage. So it's like I was thinking. It's like Zap but without lifesteal. So Yeah, yes, it does. It says any enemy. Units are separate from enemy. So you can have yeah. If it says attack, you can use it to attack an enemy. That means anything. That means the units or the hero. But if it says enemy unit, it means only units. But because this thing says enemies, that means you could use it to attack the hero, which means you could have effectively used these combos to just like burst down niggas. Like it's gonna get sick. And then this unit makes it to where every time it takes damage, you add another spear shot to your hand. So if you really want to get sick, you could play this card. You could use 3 spear shots on itself, which equalizes the mana. And then you could start using your abilities to give you more spear shots, which basically gives you a plus return on like the mana you spend. And like on the one hand, it will weaken your unit, but on the other hand, if you just need to get a lot of burst damage out, you could increase the amount of burst damage you get by like, I don't know, +3 in a turn. Or +4 actually. And then add that onto whatever you're using your ability. Yo, this shit is crazy. I'm fucking with this. I am so glad because Intellect really needed a boost. Intellect has been suffering for a while. Intellect has been the weakest prison in the game for like a long time now. So I am so glad about this. Next card is called Shelhemoth. This is I think this is another Titan card, maybe. Oh no, it's not a Titan. Never mind. It's not a Titan. Yeah. So this card is an 8 cost. Stats are 610, and it has guard. The effect is that when you play it, so this has a play effect, not a summon effect, which means that this effect's probably going to be nasty. It says when you play it, do 1 damage to all enemy units, and you repeat that for each spell you played this turn. So, if you start doing all this spear shot shit, let's say, because they're all 0 cost. So let's say, unless you use the ability for it, then it's 1 cost. So let's just say, for an example, you use 10 spear shots this turn. That would mean that when you play Shelhemoth, it's going to do 10 damage to every enemy unit on the board. Effectively, this is a board clear spell that also gives you a strong unit on the board at the same time. This is a creature that has the potential to wipe pretty much everything in the game. The mana cost is pretty high, so I feel like that's what's going to limit this card, is the fact that it costs 8 mana. But I feel like what they may end up doing, they may have to buff this card and like reduce its cost a bit so that it can be played more. Interesting card though. And then we got Spear Shot. We've already been over that. Then we've got Sea Storm. This is a 7 cost spell. Do 3 damage to enemies plus 1 damage for each other water spell you played this turn. So this is effectively Shelhemoth, but you don't get a unit on the board. So this is a board clear spell. Intellect already has a good amount of board clear stuff, so I don't really think it's necessary, but I do love the fact that all of these cards are water cards, because that means I don't have to change I already have an Ari deck. So I don't have to change it that much. My Ari deck is already water themed, so this actually fits perfectly into my Ari deck already. The fact that all of this shit is water themed. It's fucking great. I already have a water deck for us. It's sick. Next one is called Infinite Infinities. Infinite Infinities. It is a 7-cost spell, and the effect is that you draw a card. You gain a max mana for every 5 max mana you already have, and then you return this spell to the deck. This is a wisdom card. I would say this is a strong card, except once again the cost is a bit high. By the time you're spending 7 mana, you don't really want this type of effect at that point. Most of the time. I mean, I guess there's an exception of if you're playing against like a control player, then you would want to you know like this could be handy in that situation. But there's not very many control decks in the game at the moment. You got a couple of Banjo control decks. You've got, a Titus control deck. You may have a City control deck, but there's not very many control decks in the game right now. So it's not like a big threat at the moment. I don't feel like this card is really necessary at the moment. But this is a card that I will definitely keep on my radar because that is a very strong effect. I don't think it's going to be meta though. Then we've got Overheat. Do 1 damage to enemy units plus 1 damage for every 5 max mana. So this is basically this is like the intellect joint. It's a board clear, but it's much cheaper though. It's only 3 mana for this. That's kind of interesting. Next one is called Glean. It's a 3-cost spell. The effect is that you draw a card and you repeat for every 5 max mana you have. So the fact that it's a 3-cost means that I think that this will be a pretty good card. However, Wisdom already has a lot of draw in it, so I don't really feel this card is necessary. And because it relies on how much max mana you have, it's not going to be good in the early game, even though draw is really powerful in the early game. So it's this card is kind of a contradictory card. It has what seems to be a good effect, but it's not good when you need it to be good. Yeah. Then we got Gift of Sky. It's a 4-cost spell. The effect is that you gain 1 max mana and you draw a wisp unit. This card probably is going to be pretty good, actually. This might be meta. It depends on how good the wisp cards are. But this could be a meta card. So I'm going to go through again and see how many cards that I predict are going to be meta. 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to say that like 9 or maybe 10 of these cards, of these 20 cards they've shown us, are going to be meta. So about half of them. About half of them are powerful enough to where I can see them being in the meta. That's pretty interesting. I think that shit is going to get shaken up quite a bit. And I'm here for it because it looks like they're buffing intellect finally. So now we're going to start seeing more. We're going to start seeing more Banjo, more Ari, maybe even more Mai, because she kind of fell off after they nerfed her. After they nerfed that combo that I found, they nerfed the shit out of her. I haven't really seen much Mai since then, but we might start seeing her again. And as usual, they keep buffing strength and agility, but I don't know. I will say this patch, strength didn't get buffed as much as it usually does. There were some nerfs in there. Um, and there were some reworks that I think are net nerfs as well. As a matter of fact, damn near every strength card that they changed, I would say was a net nerf this patch. So maybe they're realizing that they've been buffing strength too much. Maybe they're realizing that. But yeah, I'm sure they're also doing a lot of this to kind of just shake the meta up. So there's that. But yeah, that is it for patch 118. Woo! Boy, oh boy, how long have I been streaming? Fuck, man. 3 hours. That's what's up. Yeah. Like I said, man. Like I said, man, hit me up, bro. Hit me up because I can just